Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Chris Merritt. I am the director of the Institute at Western Illinois University, and it's really my pleasure to greet you this morning. We are going to deviate just a little bit from the published program. We have some special guests on the dais that we're just very pleased to have here this morning. After our guests depart, we will plunge back into the regularly scheduled sessions. So first, what I'd like to do is I'd like to thank Governor Bruce Rauner for showing up today. He is actually the first sitting governor who has attended this conference, which is co-hosted by the Governor's Rural Affairs Council. So sometimes south of I-80 we feel a little bit neglected, and so Governor Rauner is doing his part to showcase that downstate and rural Illinois is an important part of our great state. Second, I would like to say thank you to Lieutenant Governor Sanguinetti. She and her staff have been working tirelessly on rural development issues. She chairs the Governor's Rural Affairs Council, and it's just been a real pleasure to work with her and her staff over the past few months. And finally, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Jack Thomas. He is the president of Western Illinois University, and I am proud to work at WIU because he is a visionary, tireless leader. He's actually my boss's boss, but he's been just a fabulous guy to work for and has really been a great leader for our university. Now, obviously, he's focused on what happens on the WIU campus, but he also has an abiding interest in the Illinois communities because obviously that's where our alumni are living and that's where our students come from. So obviously there is a community-university relationship that is important to Dr. Thomas. So let me introduce to you WIU's 11th president, Jack Thomas.
Thank you, Chris, and good morning to you. On behalf of Western Illinois University, I want to welcome you to the Illinois Institute for Rural Affairs Rural Community Economic Development Conference. We are honored to have our Governor Rauner and Lieutenant Governor Sanguinetti as our distinguished guests. Let's give them a round of applause for being here today. Western Illinois University has a long-standing interest in teaching and researching subject matter relevant to the rural communities. We have a School of Agriculture and recently added mechanical engineering to our School of Engineering. In August 2016, we instituted a new master's degree in community and economic development. Our College of Business and Technology is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. So for decades, we have offered curricula that focuses on business and economic development. While we at Western Illinois University are focused on our teaching mission, we are keenly aware that our alumni become the successful business and community leaders in rural locations across the state. As evidence of our commitment to economic development beyond our university, it is worth noting that we have hosted a small business development center on the Macomb campus since 1990. And just last week, we held a press conference to announce the opening of our second small business development center on our Quad Cities campus. Now, we deserve a round of applause. Helping us celebrate the opening was Lieutenant Governor Sanguinetti. She is an advocate for rural communities in a variety of ways. She chaired the governor's task force on local government consolidation and unfunded mandates. She leads the Rivers Coordinating Council. And today, she is representing rural Illinois as chair of the Governor's Rural Affairs Council, which is a co-host for this conference today. Let's give them another round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Lieutenant Governor Sanguinetti to the podium where she will offer greetings and introduce our governor. Let's give her a warm welcome this morning.
Thank you, President. That's a tough act to follow. I really enjoyed the expansion of that small business center. We now have a second one, but there's also another component that's so special, which is the international trade component to that. And it just shows that Illinois, estamos abiertos para negocio. We're open for international commerce and trade. So that's been wonderful to see how you folks have evolved in that regard, President. So I'd like to say good morning and welcome to the 20th Annual Rural Community Economic Development Conference. It is the 28th annual, but actually we turned 30 years old today as the Governor's Rural Affairs Council. So not feeling too old. We still have a lot of work to do, but welcome to the conference. Thank you for having me, and thank you to all of you leaders here. I've run into you time and time again as I made sure during the first year in office, heading the Governor's Rural Affairs Council, that I'd make contact with each and every community, all 102 of our counties here in Illinois. And I've really enjoyed hearing about each and every one of you, and you folks let me know what made your rural communities tick. You let me know that we're not all just farmers in Illinois, we're innovators, and we like to build things. And in our Governor's Rural Affairs Council, we took in all that input that we collected during this tour, and we divided into several subgroups. The subgroups meaning what affects rural communities in Illinois today. We heard about economic development, and you want that in your rural communities. Workforce development. We don't want to look to other states. We want to look to our own and what we're creating in Illinois as far as our workforce. We heard about education. A lot of you told me about classrooms, and certain classrooms in Illinois where kids were able to avail themselves of foreign languages and AP classes, but in a lot of our rural communities, we're not getting that. Those apprenticeship programs, and we're working very hard to put you in touch with our state agencies so that we could work together. And then we also have rural health. Telemedicine has been a big issue facing rural Illinois, the brain drain of a lot of our professionals choosing not to work in rural Illinois, and how could we have access to the best health care available? And with our Rural Affairs Council, we've been able to attack all these issues. And let me tell you, it's a very diverse group, a very energized group, and we'll continue working for rural Illinois this way. Also, too, I chair the Governor's Three Rivers Council, and that actually overlaps very well with the Governor's Rural Affairs Council. We have a lot of water in Illinois, and we need to take care of these gems that we have in Illinois, but nothing prevents us from being able to trade and being that hothouse here in Illinois. We have the best farmers, we have the best land, so why don't we look at our river systems as a trade superhighway? And that's what we're working so very hard to do. Now, I'd be remiss without telling you folks that soon we'll be showcasing here in Decatur, Illinois, the Farm Progress Show. So if you haven't jotted that down in your calendars, please do so now. Again, you're going to see that this is very international. We're selling here in Illinois what we're doing to the rest of the world, and it's important that we go there between August 29th and August 31st this summer in Decatur, Illinois. We have the best soy, we have the best corn, we have the best farmers, we have the best swine, we have the best pumpkins, and what am I missing? Horseradish. So let's sell it. Let's sell it to the rest of the world. There's so many good things happening in Illinois, and we want to showcase that worldwide. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you this morning at this conference to our Governor, Bruce Rauner.
Morning, everybody. How you all doing? Thank you. I heard you guys were meeting today. I wanted to come over, get out of the schedule, negotiate with legislators, and come over and say thank you. Thank you for being advocates for small-town Illinois, for rural Illinois. The members of our communities, the people across Illinois and small towns, are the bedrock of our state, the bedrock of America. Faith, family, hard work, giving back in our communities. The people in our small towns and our rural communities are what America's all about. And for me, it's very personal. My mom's family, they were Swedish immigrants, and they were dairy farmers. Dairy farmers, corn farmers. My aunt and uncle were cattle ranchers. And I spent a lot of my time growing up with them. My grandparents lived in a little double-wide trailer outside of Whitewater, Wisconsin. And it was all about hard work, and faith and giving back in the communities. And my grandfather taught me the 3 lessons that might guide my life. Hard work, the importance of working 100% best effort, everything you do, getting a great education, and making sure to give back in the community, because everybody needs some help and we have a moral duty to help each other. And that's how he lived his life, and that's how I've tried to live my life. Small town America is where America is built and where our values come from. And we've got to advocate for small town, rural Illinois every day. The trends aren't necessarily with us. A lot of young people want to live in big urban centers. And you can look at the overall trends. And, you know, we're not going to fight that. We shouldn't fight it. We should try to take advantage of it. But what the critical thing is, we've got to make sure that there's outstanding educational opportunity in every community, and there's strong economic opportunity in every community. And that's what we can work toward together every day. And as governor, that's what I've tried to do. Worked hard here to change the education funding formula, the way money is spent supporting our K-12 schools in Illinois. Rural schools, small town schools in Illinois have not gotten their fair share of state resources to support education. We're trying to change that. We have put forth a program, a structure, so we can improve state funding for schools. Some of you know this, some of you may not. Illinois is the worst state in America for funding K-12 education. Our state government gives the lowest percentage of education funding of any state government in America. This is wrong. This is wrong. And it shortchanges rural communities and small towns that don't have the financial resources to put as much money into their schools as wealthier communities and bigger communities have. And we're changing that. We're pushing that right now in the General Assembly. It's a big deal. Number 2, we are advocating that leaders at Western Illinois do a fantastic job. We want to get a balanced budget with structural changes to promote job creation and to protect our taxpayers. And with a balanced budget, I want to put more resources into our state university system, Western, Eastern, Southern, ISU, U of I. They are economic engines in our communities, and I'm going to be advocating with them to help them expand their footprint around the state. Open branches, open affiliates, make connections in our communities outside of their core campus so we can create jobs and more educational opportunities in communities all across the state, not just in 5 or 6, but in a dozen. 15, 18 communities around the state use our university system as economic engines, creating opportunity and educational quality throughout the state of Illinois. We're going to be pushing that really hard. Now, for 3.5 years before I ran for governor, I was the chairman of Choose Chicago, the tourism bureau for the city of Chicago. And you know what? While I was there, new staff, new marketing plan, new board, I put all that in as chairman, and we turned Chicago from a moderate grower in tourism to a booming tourist destination. I was very proud of that. I want to do the same thing for the entire state of Illinois. Tourism is a huge economic growth engine, creating opportunities in our hotel industry, in our restaurants, in our diners, in our different attractions across the state of Illinois. We've got incredible attractions to bring visitors to come and create jobs and economic opportunity in every community across the state. And I'm going to be pushing this really hard. And now with our bicentennial coming up, it's a special opportunity to showcase everything that's wonderful about the state of Illinois and use that as leverage to then drive more economic opportunity in tourism every year going forward. And that's going to be a big push. It's one of the quickest levers we have to create jobs in Illinois and more economic growth across the entire state in virtually every county. Now, as well, we have huge opportunity in energy in Illinois. I'm a big advocate for energy diversity and creation of economic growth in the state of Illinois. I'm an advocate for coal, oil, natural gas. We have big economic opportunities in small towns in southern Illinois to take advantage of our energy resources. We got to take advantage of our energy resources. We also worked hard to make sure that our utilities, our energy-producing utilities, stay open and are functioning and creating jobs and economic growth in the communities here in central Illinois and in northwest Illinois. We worked hard to make sure Exelon kept their plants open. Those are good-paying jobs and, of course, source of major economic prosperity in small-town Illinois. We worked hard to make sure those plants stay open, and we're going to continue to do that. Now, the other huge opportunity for us is in infrastructure. I want to get a capital bill and invest in our roads, bridges, locks, dams, canals to make sure our farmers can get their products to market and to make sure that we are the transportation hub of America. We should have the best transportation network in the country, and we've got to put more resources into it. The construction creates jobs, but more importantly, over time, that transportation network creates economic opportunity. It's easier to get goods and services from small towns to across the entire nation. And we'll put a lot of money into infrastructure, and that's going to be helping small town and rural Illinois. And then finally, big battle in Illinois right now is in manufacturing. Manufacturing firms create jobs in small towns. They love the work ethic of the families in small town Illinois, in rural Illinois. They like the land values. They like the quick access to transportation in our highway network. Manufacturing firms would like to be in our more rural communities, in our smaller towns. Manufacturers love that. But today in Illinois, our regulations are pushing them out. Our red tape, our restrictions, our requirements, our regulations are killing us in manufacturing. I don't know if you know this, but we've lost over 300,000 manufacturing jobs out of Illinois over the last 15 years. We are not competitive. And gosh darn it, I'm one of the most competitive sons of guns on the planet. I love Illinois. These manufacturing firms should be coming here, not leaving from here. And while we are losing manufacturing jobs out of our rural communities and our small towns, the states around us are growing manufacturing. The 5 states around us have added hundreds of thousands of manufacturing jobs. And now we have an administration in Washington that is very pro-build and buy American and pro-manufacturing in America. And we need to make sure Illinois is positioned to take advantage of that, and we are growing our manufacturing economy here. And we can do it. I'm talking to dozens of firms right now about moving to Illinois. They want to come to Illinois. We got great people here. We got a great location here. We got great transportation here. They want to come. They want to be here. But they've said, Governor, you got to show at least some of the changes that you're pushing for can get done. You got to change your system. Even if you get half of what you're pushing for, get your changes, reforms done, and we'll come. So that's why we're pushing workers' comp reform. That's why we're pushing property tax relief. That's why we're trying to cut the red tape. That's why we're trying to rationalize our layers of bureaucracy in government. Because if we can do some of that, we don't have to do all of it, but some of it, companies would much rather be here than go over to Tennessee or Indiana or Missouri or Texas. And believe me, once we get the changes made, I'm a workaholic. I work 24/7, and I'm going to travel the nation. I'm going to travel the world on my nickel. I'm not going to charge taxpayers. But I'm going to Nashville. I'm going to Austin, Texas. I'm going to Atlanta, Georgia. And we're going to bring those companies that are growing there, and we're going to bring them here to Central Illinois and Southern Illinois, where we got the best people in America and where they're going to want to come. So this is an exciting time for our state. Thank you for your advocacy for our small towns and our rural communities in Illinois. God bless you. God bless our great state of Illinois. God bless the United States of America. Let's kick some tails and turn our state around, make us proud and prosperous again. Thanks very much, everybody. Well, how are you doing? How you doing?
Good morning.
Good morning. Everybody ready? Yep. All right, good morning. We're here this morning to advocate on behalf of our small towns and our rural communities in Illinois. Our small towns are the bedrock of Illinois. It's the source of much of our prosperity and good quality of life. We want to do everything we can to grow more economic opportunity and education quality here in small towns and rural communities here in Central Illinois and Southern Illinois, and that's what we're here to meet today. Yesterday we got some bad news, some very disappointing news. A state judge ruled that Comptroller Mendoza can decide where she wants to pay state employees from, which funds that she wants to use. We don't agree with that ruling. However, we're going to honor it given that. We believe that Comptroller Mendoza's goal is to shift the source of funds for state employee pay from general revenue, from GRF, which is the way she's been paying those state employees since she came into office. But she decided to change, and she wants to now take money out of some special purpose revolving funds that has money in them that gets used for rent and facility costs to keep essential government services running. We believe her goal is to deplete those funds and then create a crisis and create a government shutdown to force either stopgap deficit spending and then ultimately a tax hike without any changes to our system. We believe that's the goal. That's wrong. We will continue to advocate against it. And every day we will say, please, Comptroller Mendoza, don't deplete those funds. They are needed to prevent a crisis. That is not the right thing to do. Continue to pay our state employees out of general revenue as has been done since you came into office. Consistent with that tactic by Comptroller Mendoza, Attorney General Lisa Madigan has continued to aggressively try to stop state employee pay to create a crisis and shut down the government. She decided, even though she lost first round in state court to stop state employees pay, she's going to end run the appellate court, and she's going straight to the Supreme Court to try to get the Supreme Court to say state employees should not get paid and the government should be shut down. This is wrong. This is an attempt to create a crisis and force a tax hike without any changes to our system. And this is clearly part of a coordinated activity, coordinated pattern between the Attorney General, our Comptroller, and frankly our Speaker, who coordinates it all, to create a crisis and shut down the government. Right now, we can prevent the crisis of state employees not getting paid if we would pass Representative Avery Bourne's bill. Avery Bourne has introduced a bill that will create a continuing permanent appropriation for state employees. So whether there's a budget or not, or whether there's a end of a budget year or not, there's always state employees will get their pay. They work every day. They deserve to get paid on a regular basis for their work. State legislators passed continuing appropriations for themselves. So state legislators, even though they don't work full time, they get paid no matter what, even without a budget. We should do that for sure for state employees. They do work every day, and they deserve to get paid. So we're going to fight hard. We are pushing to have the General Assembly pass Representative Avery Bourne's bill for a continuing permanent appropriation for state employee pay. That's the right thing to do.
In the realm of people owed money by state government, why are you treating state workers as superior to the workers at human service contractors who are also suing to get paid?
Inside government, the folks are working every day. Legislators pass continuing appropriation for themselves, which frankly I think was wrong. They don't work full time. Our state employees work every day. It's within our.
And so do human service contractors.
So
Why
there's
are they
various.
different?
There's difference between being inside government and being outside government. Inside government, those folks are working every day, and they should be paid. They should have a continuing appropriation.
But the human service workers are working every day too.
It's different, inside government versus outside. There's a lot of folks work outside government.
And the government,
It's
at
different.
some point,
Just a second.
Governor, there seems to be this battle between you and Comptroller Mendoza, where normally these are relatively minor issues that would get worked out between your offices, but aren't. Is this all about politics in 2018?
No, it's about shutting down the government and forcing a tax hike without reform. That's what's going on. That's why Speaker Madigan worked so hard to make sure that Comptroller Munger was defeated. And he got Comptroller Mendoza in. Comptroller Mendoza takes her orders from Speaker Madigan, and they are working together to create a crisis and shut down the government. We've been able to head off Comptroller Mendoza on a number of things she's tried to change or funding that she's tried to cut off. We've called her out on it and exposed it, and pressure through the press and others have had her back down on a few things she's tried. This one is tough. She's doing it in the court, and we lost in court. Our state judges are, sometimes part of the problem. And this is part of a pattern to create a crisis and force a tax hike and not have to make any changes to our system, which is fundamentally broken.
In what way is the what way is the judiciary a problem? I feel like sometimes you make these comments, but we haven't really gotten a full understanding of why that is. Is it just because, on one hand they agree with you, then the next they disagree with you, and that makes them bad, or is there something deeper?
Well, today I'm not going to talk more about our state judicial system. I think we'll save that for another day.
Wow.
Right now, we've got to focus on making sure our state employees get paid, and we don't allow a crisis to occur that would shut down the government and force a big tax hike without any
How
reforms.
can you say that a judge is part of the problem, or sometimes it's that, and then not expand on it?
Well, there's a lot of things that I comment on one day to the next, and we'll talk about that in the future.
Governor, is there any
Yes,
The effort of the grand bargain, and you've spoken on one hand in favor of it, but many of the Democratic senators are saying that it was your interference or your actions I'll retract interference, but your calls to Republican senators to have them back out of that deal. Did you make the calls? What were you asking them? Why, if so, and you asked them not to vote in favor, what was your reasoning?
No, there's a lot of misinformation out there and a lot of spin. I would like to see a grand bargain more than anybody. We've worked so hard to change our system, and the Senate has been working on the types of changes that could really move the needle to get more jobs in Illinois and protect our taxpayers. They're working on term limits. They're working on a property tax freeze. They're working on workers' comp reform. They're working on education funding reform. They're working on pension reform. These are exactly the right things to do. They're the right things to change. And I'm very supportive of the Senate continuing to work and to try to come to a grand bargain with a balanced budget. I'm an anti-tax guy, but I've said I'll support new revenue. They should make some cuts, some spending cuts, which so far I've been told that they're not willing to do.
Did you oppose the actual bills that were on the floor last week?
I've never commented on specific bills. I've said come to a grand bargain that you all feel good about that will actually move the needle. And don't give up. Don't give up. This has been going on for months.
Did you call the Republican senators and encourage them? A number of the Democrats are saying we had an agreed to bill, and it was your interaction that caused the Republican senators to vote against it.
There's a lot of spin and a lot of misinformation out there. So Democrats, including President Cullerton, asked me to weigh in with my views on the grand bargain. I think he publicly said that in the press. And I took that opportunity in my budget address to make some comments about the deal. And I didn't say this particular issue has to be in or this has to be out. I just said make sure that the whole package moves the needle for job creation and moves the needle to protect our taxpayers. For example, I said, why don't we have the property tax freeze be permanent rather than temporary? The House passed a permanent property tax freeze. Don't do a 2-year like the Senate's Democrats were advocating. Make it permanent. And for those who say, well, permanent is too tough, it's too difficult for our local governments, I would pretty strongly disagree with that. It is fair to give the people of Illinois the voice to decide whether their property taxes go up or not. And if the people in a particular community are fine with their property taxes going up, they'll authorize it. That's all that freeze means, and it's a reasonable thing to do.
Is there any validity to the argument that Lisa Madigan has made in court that she is trying to put pressure on you and lawmakers to reach an agreement? In 2 years?
Why did she do this now? This is an important point. Why did the Attorney General choose to do this now when the Senate announced that they were getting close to a grand bargain? Why now? If she really believed that was the right thing to do, she could have done this 18 months ago.
But some people
She's doing this.
that would help
She said she
it.
wanted to give you guys a chance to negotiate.
She's doing this because she and the organizations, it's a coordinated effort to make sure to create a crisis, shut down the government, and force a tax hike. That's what they're trying to do.
How do you know that?
Thanks, everybody. Thanks.